The following video may not be about what it appears to be. Please wait. Viktor E Schoof, and or Fritz Artz Springmeier, both the same person apparently, formerly of Corbett, Oregon, wrote a number of self-published or vanity-published books on the following subjects: the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, satanic cults, mind control, and a family lineage bloodline of 13 families, which appears to only be sourced from him. Citation, please. And something that he apparently dubbed the Eastern Establishment, whether that's East Coast United States like a mob, or Eastern philosophy, or the Far East or Near East, we don't know. But as you can tell from that, there's a strong bent towards a particular variety of content. This could be considered fan fiction all the way to a person claiming these are real. I'll cover these later on real quickly to explain what they are in general from the standpoint of reading just enough about this to see where he was going. Maybe. It's an opinion. What's not an opinion is that in 1997, like every other state, the state of Oregon had violent extremist groups who made all sorts of claims and defensively named themselves in such a way that they would appear to be legitimate or a group that you'd want to be part of. The devil doesn't dress up like the devil if he wants you to join his, Cub Scout group. He's going to dress up nice. This one was a group named Army of God, and it was accused of or involved in growing marijuana. This is the state of Oregon. It's the 1990s. Saying a group of people is growing marijuana is almost prosaic, so I don't really think that this should be argued. I don't know if it happened or not. I don't think it's relevant, but the main thing is it's an violent extremist group. Naming itself Army of God would at least give that impression. You can go look it up and see if it was, but at the time that was what it was perceived as. At least that's the contention of some people and contention of apparently some court paperwork. Or not. 1997, October 8th in Damascus, Oregon. At 12:50 p.m. at 16014 Southeast 82nd Avenue, or Drive, I think it's Drive is the way it's stated here, at an adult video store called Fantasyland, a bomb was detonated. It is asserted that this was to divert attention from something happening 6 miles to its east. 10 minutes later, around 1 p.m., exact time and date information is not being included for some reason. A key bank was robbed for $6,000 by a perpetrator with a FBI tag duct-taped onto his jacket's back. Because these are close together, it's presumed it's two individuals. Could it be an individual that ran 6 miles in 10 minutes? I know people being able to do 10-minute miles, so this would have to be either by bicycle, motorcycle, car, or it's two people. Let's continue. If they're associated with each other, which it likely is, and two individuals were captured. 2002, years later. 2002, January 31st, in Portland, Oregon, in the United States District Court, a person, Mr. Springmeier, was indicted in connection with the armed robbery and or bombing, depending on which iteration, because obviously we have two incidents. 2003, February 12th, approximately. I'm trying to get these numbers right. I'll explain why in a minute. He was found guilty of the use of a semi-automatic rifle during the commission of a felony and aiding and abetting and armed bank robbery. So this indicates that he was found guilty of being in possession of a semi-automatic rifle while committing a felony of any kind. If you are in possession of it or using the firearm, it can be phrased either way. He could have just simply been holding it, might have been in a low ready position, might have been actively firing. Unfortunately, blurring these lines of active usage of a firearm versus it's in your pocket versus holding it versus reaching for it, all of this being lumped together is something that happens in the state of Oregon too much, in my opinion. Aiding and abetting an armed robbery can indicate that both individuals agreed to say they were helping or they were wheelman, but they didn't actually handle a gun and point it at anybody because there was a shot fired in the ceiling. So he's being accused of being the guy who fired it and or simply having a gun. And okay, do you have to strictly prove that two partners in crime are both guilty? Because if you're involved in this, you're equally guilty of everything that happened afterwards. When it's a felony involving a federal crime, you're just part of the group. It's a conspiracy. You agreed to it. You're guilty of everything that happened. If your friend murders somebody, but you're simply sitting behind the wheel, you're guilty of murder because you participated in an act, then ended up in someone's death, and it was an unlawful death, and it's a felony occurrence, felony murder. That's how the law reads, because that way wheelmen would know that there were consequences for participating in something that would be very likely to include firing a gun and someone getting hurt or killed. If you don't know the origin story, that's where it comes from. Like it or don't, that's partially what it is. That's a layman's view. I'm not a lawyer, nor am I your lawyer, because I'm not a lawyer. But let's continue. 2003, November, sometime, again, we don't get exact dates, Springmeier was sentenced to 51 months for the armed robbery, 60 months for aiding and abetting, and he was placed into a Sheridan prison. Got a $7,500 fine, a $6,400 restitution demand, and an additional $200 for miscellaneous. Presumably the restitution is to give back the money that was stolen, and the $7,500 fine might have been for damages or the explosion at the other location, and the $200 fine for illegal discharge of a firearm or whatever. But 51 months for armed robbery, so he was an armed robber, and aiding and abetting charge 60 months, but no statement of the bomb being set by him. Now, depending on what's going on, this may have been an agreed to sentencing. Or not, depending on how you're looking at it. When you make an agreement, a plea deal, usually for a lower sentencing, or in some cases people do a plea deal for what they claim they really did, not what they're charged with. That actually happens a couple of times a year. You can't have an appeal process. Immediately after this, apparently, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed his conviction because he immediately appealed. The claim would then have to be that there was impropriety on the part of the court, a simple mistake, an error, whatever. An appeals process can be simply for technical issues, like saying it was 51 months and 60 months concurrent, not sequential. So, 2010, October, Springmeier may have had a 5-year probation release agreement with restriction from engaging in political work, that's in quotes, as an offer to leave early or a reduction or an extension to the time he would be in probation because this was October 2010. At any rate, he was back in prison by January 2011. Did he fail the probation? Did he decide to change back out? Did he decide 5 years was too much because he would rather go with whatever the standard sentencing was? Maybe I don't see any indication of what the probation was supposed to be, or being a ex-con and having to check in with somebody every month after you're out of prison. Some people are released from prison immediately. Others put on supervised release as part of their punishment. He was released, however, a few months later, March 25th, from the federal prison system. This shows up not as a 9-year prison sentence, but an 8-year prison term from 2003 to 2011 because of the following associations. Guilt by association is acceptable in some cases, depending on what's going on. They're really limited guilt by association is frowned on by every legal system. Marijuana, a violent extremist group, a bank robbery, detonating a bomb, and the usage of a firearm, etc., etc., etc. What is this video about? Why am I making it? This is information chased down by not looking at the Wikipedia article, but digging up every revision where people have very steadfastly decided that whether you are for or against Fritz and or Springmeier here, or Schoof, or whatever name he wishes to be under, everybody wants to delete records of what the Wikipedia article was about. They're all demonstrating, wanting to make it to where there's no data left. It's almost like an anti-gentleman's agreement to delete history. This is a video about something that happened X number of years ago. Gosh, like decades ago. God, I'm old. I was in Portland, Oregon at the time. Didn't do any of these things, by the way. And I heard of an explosion at a porn store and heard about a bank robbery on the same day. After I got home from, I don't know, I think I might have been at work, or if it was my day off, I was in there just doing catch-up and getting paid for it, hopefully, at the computer shop on the other side of the river. So, my opinion, the guy indulges in and or exploits people who believe in satanic cults, the Illuminati, New World Order, and made up his own story that he could totally have power over. One of the points of telling a lie is you have power over what the narrative is, and you can make it as dumb as you want to. If people believe it, you filter out the unbelievers who aren't going to be able to be your patsies and money makers. An Eastern establishment and a 13-family lineage bloodline of evil people. But anyway, let's go over it. The New World Order, popularized as an expression, stupidly, by one of the Bush family. The Illuminati refers to the Bavarian Illuminati that was hunted down and killed off, and or the presumption that it was never killed off, that's all a cover story, and or the presumption that people have picked up the mantle, which means it's a completely different thing, so I call it the Illuminati. Presumptions about the Freemasons, usually made by people who immediately, again, telling a lie gives you power over what the story is, making up stories about 33rd degree Freemasons and that sort of thing when they don't exist. They're talking about either a different group or they're just making up lies about another group, which, if you're not aware of it, that is a standard behavior. If people don't like your group, they're going to lie about you, because saying, the Freemasons are a group of people who are associated primarily with doing masonry, like building buildings, kind of falls flat on its face. And then saying things about the Jehovah's Witness, hey, we all are annoyed by them, but I'm not sure if this is appropriate. And then claims of satanic cults as a boogeyman you can use when you're referring to another group, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And mind control, which is, this almost exclusively appeals to people who have delusions of having mind control and or people manipulating their mind because they're dealing with mental illness. Manipulating mentally ill people so that you can make money selling them books and having them watch your YouTube channel is morally wrong. There, I've given them a bunch of opinions. That's what people are expecting. But again, what is this video about? Most of the information I gave you doesn't exist on the Wikipedia article or anywhere else you look up on the first 4 pages when you look up Fritz Artz Springmeier and or Viktor E Schoof anywhere on the internet until I post this video. Why? Good question. My question, why are people actively going through and erasing the time and date stamps? The time of day this shit happened. The location. Why aren't we able to answer this? I didn't care about this guy. This is a non-issue. This is a nothing burger for me. The something burger is the fact that you can't find any data. And now you have. This may or may not be accurate. This is the best I could do in a full 18-hour day. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. I'm talking about confirmable sources here. Links below in the description. Bye.